Let's breathe in and breathe out. So the topic that we want to cover today is consistent parenting. It's an introduction to the topics on parenting. Parenting educational topics are always helpful because, through these topics, we learn helpful ways to continue helping ourselves as parents and helping and supporting our children's stages of development. Um, when it comes to parenting classes or parenting group discussions, I think it's always a good idea to be open to the process, to continue learning ways to become more effective and consistent parents. Um, we don't know everything, and it's okay to be humble and to be open to learn or to continue learning ways to approach our children based on their stages of development. So let's see what we have. So here we have the learning objectives. Number one says that we want to understand and process an introduction to parenting. Another one is, we want to know what neglect and child maltreatment, uh, this child neglect situation and child maltreatment aspects that we also want to learn. And of course, we want to address or we want to cover the significance of a parenting definition. Let's continue. Introduction. Introduction to parenting. The first one is to prevent child neglect. To continue preventing child neglect and violence in the world, parents have the opportunity to improve their knowledge, understanding, and application toward educating and raising their children in the best possible direction with lots of affection and role modeling. So this observation goes along with the World Health Organization 2009, which states that nurturing parenting child relationship enhances a healthy, non-violent environment. Apart from providing for their children's basic needs, children also need a warm and affectionate relationship with an adult caregiver who is responsive to the child's needs. Is very, very important according to research. Now, definitely, and of course, I love you messages and a consistent affectionate relationship serves the significant need to prevent children from being exposed to unhealthy experiences. Now, the main point right here, some of this information for most parents is like, yeah, I know, I need to be loving and caring, and I need to protect my children. But the thing here is that there is no consistency. There is no consistency in regard to providing the expected attention to our children. Um, Let me give you an example. Um, let's talk about, pets and these beautiful sacred animals. Uh, los perritos, let's say, a dog. Uh, it requires so much attention and discipline to take care of a dog, especially if it's a German Shepherd. Um, I'm just using this example. I mean, if you Google it or if you go to YouTube and you try to find videos about um, what to look for if you want to have a German Shepherd, probably you will regret your desire to have a German Shepherd because they are delicate and they require so much attention. I mean, not only German Shepherds, but also other dogs. But the significance with these German Shepherds is that they are very loyal, very, very loving, and they are very faithful. So, educating ourselves in how to treat and provide discipline and adequate care to the sacred animals such as a dog requires education, requires for us to know what we are to take care of and take into consideration. Now, when it comes to our children, okay, when it comes to take care of our children, I think that the most important and the most essential quality and capacity of the parent is for the parent to be consistent with providing education, care, discipline um, to his or her children. And with discipline, I don't mean, physical punishment or screaming or yelling. No, discipline means to educate. Discipline means to show the way to our children. And as Dr. What's her name? Dr. El Ángel de la Radio, they used to call her, Doctora Isabel from a radio. Um, I forgot what she said. So, mm, mm, it requires, let's go back to a lot of discipline. Oh, education. So, discipline comes from the word disciple, right? So, the word discipline means to teach, means to show the way, means to provide specific examples to our children in order for them to follow through the expectation. Now, so when it comes to our children, um, probably I want to say that most parents, especially if they are new parents, I want to say, they have no experience, right? I mean, I was there. I had my first daughter, and as a new father, and my wife as a new mother to our daughter, we didn't know exactly and perfectly, the expectations, right? We learn as we process, in the family relationship and being a father and mother, we learn those coping skills. Um, um, so let's continue. So now, so this is the main thing, right? The main thing is education, discipline, and showing the way to our children. Um, um, and we need to be ready. And in order for us to be ready, we need to be willing and open to learn ways to remain, to continue supporting our children. Um, this is what I have discovered. Well, not necessarily discovered, but this is what I have experienced with So many parents that I have talked to for the past 21 years, providing educational, psychoeducational information. Mm, the main thing that I experience is the need for parents to consistently allow themselves to be open to continue learning, to provide as much support, education, discipline to our children. Um, Now, so let's see right here. Definitely, I love you messages and a consistent, affectionate relationship serve the significant need to prevent children from being exposed to unhealthy experiences. Moreover, this nurturing parenting approach fosters physical, neurophysiological, and psychological health since a consistent, affectionate implementation improves a healthy development for children, as well as for the family unit. The lack of this approach puts at risk the well-being, care, and development of children, such as child neglect, child abuse, child endangerment, and dysfunctional family interactions. So what is child neglect? So child neglect is the most common child maltreatment or abuse um, that children suffer, especially the youngest ones. The youngest ones. And child endangerment is to expose the child or to allow the child to be in danger. Or let's say driving under the influence of alcohol and having your children in the vehicle. That would be child endangerment. Um, um, let's say, having weapons at home uh, without being protected. I mean, the weapons, I mean, it's legal to have weapons, but let's say, the parent is neglecting those weapons, he's putting or he or she's putting the child in danger of, you know, experiencing a tragedy if the child gets to those weapons, right? Um, I don't know, leaving your child in the car and going to the store very quickly, or going to your apartment or your house and you forgot your child is there. I mean, mistakes are mistakes, but so many bad things can happen within seconds and minutes. So, and so forth. But that's going to be another topic in another video. So this is just an introduction. Child sexual abuse, child physical abuse, child emotional abuse, and failing to protect children, right? So failing to protect would be, let's say, a mom allowing the male person to be violent and abusive to her. I mean, not allowing necessarily, but she's a victim of domestic violence, and exposing the child or the children to that kind of environment would be considered to some degree, uh, failing to protect, because so many bad things can happen um, from one perspective. Okay, let's continue. So researchers Dr. Donald Dutton and Dr. Daniel Sunkin in intimate partner violence highly send the message to the world of the lack of healthy, loving, and compassionate relationships within families. Due to unhealthy and violent family experiences, children are at risk to suffer developmental issues. So children being exposed to domestic violence are more likely to continue with the cycle of violence from generation to generation. So um, this is something serious, something dangerous. Now, statistical reports on child abuse are seriously alarming. Educating parents and the public on these high statistics should help the parents and the public uh, to prevent child maltreatment. Since 2015, these are some statistical um, numbers. Since 2015, victims of child neglect and abuse cases have increased based on a new federal report for the first time. Has increased. In 2018, there were 3,534,000 million cases of child maltreatment, and 678,000 cases were determined to be victims of maltreatment. So the other cases, I assume, were dismissed. So the percentage of child neglect was 60.8%. So there is more child neglect than any other type of abuse. So for children who were physically abused, represented 10.7%, and 7% were sexually abused. So there is some information, right? Now, each state has its definitions of child abuse and neglect based on standards set by federal law. The following report serves to foster motivation to remain to be consistent in protecting the family as a unit, to prevent and stop child neglect and child physical abuse. So here is another report. Ironically, parents are one of the biggest threats to many children's health and development. Can you believe it? Parents are one of the biggest threats to many children's health and development. According to an annual study sponsored by the Department of Health and Human Services, in 2013, nearly 680,000 children were reported by states to be victims of abuse or neglect. Worst, 1,520 children died from maltreatment that year, nearly 80% of them at the hands of their own parents. Infants under age 1 suffer most, with an abuse rate of 23 points per thousand, over twice as high as the overall child victimization rate of 9.1 per 1,000. So here we have this report. Now, moreover, researchers review in 2009, 3.3 million children were reported for child maltreatment. The number of investigations was 7,200,000 confirmed, more than 500,000 child maltreatment cases. So once again, a number of investigations was 702,000 confirmed child maltreatment cases. So these children may have parents having issues of domestic violence, alcohol, and drug problems, and presenting psychological complications. So once again, these children may have parents having issues of domestic violence, alcohol, and drug problems, and presenting psychological complications. Of course, parents who have these issues with their children, let's say, most of them may have, serious difficulties at home, such as domestic violence, alcohol issues, drug issues, and they may suffer themselves from depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues. As these children are exposed to domestic violence, neglect, and abuse are also at risk of externalizing and or internalizing severe problems along with the trauma they have experienced. In other words, little ones being exposed to domestic violence, being abused, being neglected, um, are likely to either repress their issues, their psychological, emotional difficulties, and also, externalizing their issues, acting in ways that may get them in trouble. So internalizing issues would be more about depression and anxiety, sleeping difficulties, um, um, and externalizing has to do with children, expressing their issues via or through being aggressive or violent to other children or being defiant. So, as described above, a loving and responsive parental approach is essential to make sure children experience the primary need for an accepting object relation who are the parents. These parents are expected to continue learning to take care of themselves and consistently meet their children's needs. In other words, these little ones need a consistent uh, parental image. Um, so they may be exposed to healthy relationships. They may be exposed to healthy relationships instead of, negative, uh, painful experiences. So let's see, let's continue. So here we have a definition. What would be a definition of parenting? So let's see. Parenting is the art of educating our children with love, respect, and consistent discipline. This art interconnects with daily expressions of love and affection. Communicating to our children that we love them is the foundation to lead and educate our children in the best possible direction. So I think this is a good definition. What do you think? Let me read it again. Parenting is the art of educating, teaching, showing the way to our children with a lot of love, respect, and consistent discipline, with I love you messages every single day. So this art, this sacred way of being with our children interconnects with daily expressions of love and affection, communicating to our children that we love them, validating their efforts, praising them, and rewarding them for doing good is the foundation to lead, educate our children in the best possible direction. So, this is an interesting definition. Now, it is relevant that love will solve all of the life's problems and provide us with deserved instant and lasting happiness. So without consistent love and affection toward our children, family structure, discipline, and positive communication, healthy, loving, caring, respectful communication will be more challenging to achieve. I mean, that's the expectation, right? The expectation is to provide as much love and affection to our children, to our partners, to our family system. And if we don't provide so, then it's going to be more difficult to help our children be ready to continue doing well. So, being role models to our children is an essential principle and practice to manifest, to show, to do to our children. We behave in the best possible way to teach them by example, since it is not about telling them what to do, but behaving in an exemplary way, in the right, appropriate way. So it's not about telling them what to do and how to do it necessarily, but it is about showing them the way. As Siegel says, when you want to improve your children's manners or way of dealing with other people, you must first consider how you deal with others and what your child is learning through watching your behavior. I think this is very meaningful. Once again, when you want to improve your child's manners or way of dealing with other people, you must first consider how you deal with others and what your child is learning through watching your behavior. See, that's the key. So, yes, we want to teach our children, but we also want to do it in front of them, right? Being loving, being caring, being respectful, being loyal, being faithful. So otherwise, how do we teach our children, right? So let's see. Let's continue. So as parents improve an authoritative or democratic or good parenting style, they set high demands and responsiveness, clear standards for mature behavior for their children. So good parenting has to do with setting high expectations, being available, being responsive to our children. Um, you know, having expectations for our children is an essential principle that we are to foster, to create for our children. Obviously, we all want our children to have an education, go to school, graduate. It'll be way much better for them to graduate from high school, go to college, get an educational, professional career than not doing it. Now, that's the expectation. But we need to work the expectation with our children. Not for our children, but we want to work the expectations with our children. So, in other words, we just don't want to tell them or to do it for themselves. We want to show them the way. We want to discuss with them the significance of the expectations. And of course, we want our children to choose for themselves. And we are there to provide guidance, to provide, words of encouragement and so forth as parents, right? So once again, having expectations for our children is a significant necessity that we need to process every single day with our children through our role modeling, right? Now, moreover, these parents firmly enforce rules and standards, but also they encourage their children to be independent and to apply open and positive communication. Yes, we want to make sure we have rules and regulations at home because when they become older and they need to move on as adults, and if we don't teach them the way to be ready, then life is going to be more difficult for them to cope with, deal with. So um, we need to let them know that life outside home when they become older is not going to be a piece of cake. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. It's very challenging, demanding, and they need to have the tools. They need to have the patience. They need to show respect. They need to learn how to communicate, how to express their needs, how to, of course, demand to be respected. I mean, not necessarily like demand, but to expect people to respect them as they respect themselves and other people, right? So, mm, so we want them to become independent, but we need to teach them how to do it. Okay, so far so good. Now, always being consistent with love and affection while validating children for their expected behavior. Of course, this is something that we already know. So we want to consistently praise, validate our children. We want to reward them for their work, for their efforts to continue doing well. To continue doing well based on their stage of development. Um, let's see. I want to summarize. Now, um, this is just an introduction. But now we are going to talk this interesting appropriate versus inappropriate expectations according um, to the nurturing parenting program. So the nurturing parenting program addresses the significance of for us parents to continue fostering appropriate expectations for our children, which is a topic that we are going to cover later on. But for now, this is just an introduction. What are appropriate expectations? So, what appropriate expectations do I want to process? Do I want to help my children for them to decide, right? Versus inappropriate parental expectations of their children. Now, what would be inappropriate parental expectations? I mean, the appropriate expectation would be I want my son to be loving, caring, respectful, obedient, respect the rules, respect other people. Inappropriate parental expectations probably would be not being role models to our children. The way we speak, the way we behave, the way we treat other people. Keep in mind, our little ones, especially the little ones, learn mostly from what we are doing. They see us doing. Keep in mind, The little ones don't have the same um, cognitive development as an older child. So the little one, cognitively speaking, he or she is not at the mature level of understanding things, but his or her brain is absorbing, let's say, the images, the sounds, and the things that we are doing in front of them. So they don't have the same capacity as adults to distinguish if what we are doing or saying is right or wrong. But we do. We do. But they don't because they are little ones. So the more inappropriate behavioral things we do in front of our children, the more likely those would be inappropriate expectations. So let's continue. Another appropriate expectation is to show empathy to our children. Showing empathy to our children is a lot of love and affection. Love and affection, empathy, understanding, connecting uh, with our children. Showing them also to be empathic, to be respectful, right? So respect yourself, respect other people, take care of yourself. The opposite, of course, is going to be parental lack of empathy in meeting the needs of their children. So this one, remember, according to the nurturing parenting, empathy in this case is defined as taking care of yourself and being and respecting yourself, respecting your body, your person, yourself. And if we don't teach our children respect to themselves, to take care of themselves, then it's going to be very difficult for them to process, respecting themselves and other people, right? Something like that. Though we'll process this in a different video. Okay, this is an introduction. So nonviolent discipline. Of course, we don't want to use physical discipline. Um, the Pediatrician Association, something like that, um, opposed physical discipline to children. So that's another topic that we are going to cover later on. But nonviolent discipline is a compassionate, appropriate, expected way of teaching, showing the way to our children. If a little one does something he or she is not supposed to because he or she doesn't know, he or she is just a little one, and then the parent is right away going to, use physical discipline to teach the little one a lesson, of course not, right? That won't be appropriate. That would be, a strong belief in the use of corporal punishment. Um, Maybe the child is going to stop doing what he's doing wrong, supposedly, but he's going to start because he's afraid. Okay? Then how do we teach the child not to do, things he's not supposed to? Well, there is another way. There is negative consequences, removing things, removing privileges. So, and once again, we need to take into consideration the child's stage of development. But in itself, physical violence, physical punishment as a way to discipline children is not a healthy expectation. A healthy expectation. So let's continue. Appropriate family roles. What are the rules at home? What is the appropriate role at home? So let me give you one example. At home, um, we don't have alcohol, and has nothing to do with religion, okay? But it has to do with health. It has to do with, um, that there is a family history that of alcoholism. So Best way to stop it and cut it is stop drinking. No alcohol at home. And the way to teach our children not to have to drink alcohol or to have alcohol problems, the best way is don't drink as a parent. So, of course, most people will say, oh, I know how to drink socially, this and that. But here and there, things are going to get out of control. So, plus, uh, besides legal issues with alcohol, drinking and driving and fighting and then going to jail and things like that, it also has to do with your physical balance, has to do with your health. Mhm. So some people may say, oh, doctors say that it's okay to have a drink every day. Well, so a drink, would you be able to have a drink every day? A drink is a 12 ounce, beer or a glass of wine or a shot of tequila. But if someone has a drinking problem, probably he or she won't have just a drink every day. Sooner or later, or here and there, he or she is going to keep drinking more than a drink. See, that's the problem. So, appropriate family roles. What are the appropriate family roles at home? Some people talk about praying, going to church. Okay, that's a appropriate family role for the family. Excellent, right? Some people do going out for vacation, spending quality time, special events, and everybody is into, parents and children, daughters and sons, and so forth. Traditional things and so forth. The opposite, of course, is going to be reversal parent, child, family roles, and responsibilities. So we'll be covering this later on. So power and independence. So of course, we want to empower our children to continue doing their best. We also want to teach them to be independent. So we don't want to do everything for them because when they become older, don't be surprised that they will still depend on you. So let's be careful with that. That's another topic that we'll cover later on. So oppressing children's power and independence. So we want our children to be themselves, right? We'll be covering this later on. So this is just an introduction of things that we'll be covering. So let's continue. Now, so we are going to conclude. Uh, this is a beautiful image. Don't you like it? Being there, peaceful, breathe in, breathe out, reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with Mother Nature. I think this is beautiful. But so some interesting questions for an educational little quiz probably would be, what would be your own definition of parenting, or what does it mean to be a parent, right? So what would be some appropriate expectations that you uh, have for your children? So mm, how does child neglect or child maltreatment impact children's um, development? What would be the consequence? So um, I'll see what I put in the interesting educational quiz. But the most important now is, a definition of parenting. So what does it mean to be a good parent? What would be some specific examples that I am a good parent, or that I want to improve being a good parent, an effective, loving, caring parent? But also, on the other hand, what would be defined as bad parenting? And if, um, some parents, let's say, don't raise or parent their children the way as expected, the question would be, um, is there an additional problem besides, poor parenting skills? Is there some kind of, mental health issue with this parent? Some kind of trauma, some kind of, anger issues, some kind of domestic violence at home, some kind of alcohol addiction complications, some kind of substance abuse issue, some kind of, let's say, lack of, commitment and responsibility to the well-being of the family system. So I think that's very important to take into consideration. Um, I mean, some children are removed from their parents by CPS, Child Protective Services, due to neglect, due to child abuse, due to allowing someone to molest their children, you name it, child abandonment, child endangerment, um, and it is surprising that once children are going back to the parents after certain months or years, later on the road, these parents may continue having issues neglecting their children. And then children are then removed from their parents again for the second or third time. So that means there is some kind of, serious issue or difficulty, right? Um, mm, and if you consider yourself a healthy, stable parent and you continue doing your very best to support your children, the answer would be, what else do I want to continue improving or doing better to provide as much support, love, care, education to my children? Mm, um, Something significant to take into consideration is spending quality time with our children is an essential um, expectation within the art of being parents. Another one is to consistently praise our children, validate our children for their efforts to continue doing well. And of course, we want to reward them, right? But what if they are not behaving as expected and you are doing your part and you just don't know how to, help your child to listen, to obey, to follow through the expected rules? And then you have um, these reports from the school, and the school probably says that they don't know what else to do with the child because he or she's been aggressive or violent or defiant or at school. So that's when uh, you as a parent need to look for um, mental health services, not only for the child but also for the family system. There's probably some kind of, mental health issue. Um, let's say cause or correlated to the family system function. So the child is probably a symptom of all the issues occurring at home. Something like that, okay? So, okay, so I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your time. And I am confident we are going to continue doing well, to continue being loving and caring parents to our children. Always doing our best. And of course, to continue healing from our own wounds, from our own past difficult situations. So we may continue being great, effective partners, great, effective parents, great and effective people around other people. Let's breathe in. One more time, breathe in. I hope the sound is working well. So hopefully, okay, breathe in. And breathe out. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. And let's continue doing well. If this uh, if this applies to you, under the comments of this video there is a link to an interesting form to complete um, based on this topic. Thank you very much. Be well.